At the opening of the movie, a highway patrol officer notices a suspicious vehicle and begins following it. He eventually pulls the car over and approaches the driver. The man inside stays strangely calm and secretly hides a gun beneath his leg. The officer asks for identification, but the driver gives no proper response. Before the situation can continue, another police car arrives. It is driven by Officer Jane, who is also the first officer's wife. She checks if everything is okay. Her husband tells her there is no problem and asks her to leave. Jane starts to drive away, but in her mirror, she notices a heated argument taking place beside the stopped car. Something feels wrong, so she turns back. Before she can reach them, the suspect suddenly shoots her husband dead. Jane instantly opens fire, trying to stop the killer, but he escapes before she can land a shot. The story then shifts to the murderer hiding in a hotel room. A television report reveals that he is already responsible for 16 deaths, and the authorities still have no idea how to capture him. While the entire country fears him, he calmly prepares for whatever comes next, sleeping with weapons nearby as if violence is routine for him. The next day, he stalks another target. He follows a young woman to a pharmacy and waits until she returns to her car. When she gets inside, she discovers too late that the killer is already in the back seat. He murders her, steals the store keys, enters the pharmacy, and collects a large amount of unusual prescription drugs before disappearing again. Meanwhile, Jane is shattered by the loss of her husband. What hurts even more is knowing the man responsible is still free and continuing to kill. When she learns another woman has been murdered, she realizes waiting for others to solve the case is pointless. She decides to hunt the killer herself, even if she must break rules to do it. As Jane begins digging into the case, the body count keeps rising. More victims are found, and the killer's total climbs dramatically. The crimes become so severe that federal agents take control of the investigation. Because the case now belongs to the FBI, Jane is pushed aside despite being personally connected to it. But she refuses to stop. Elsewhere, the murderer spots a stranded couple on the roadside. Their tire is flat, and they are distracted trying to fix it. He parks nearby, puts on a mask, grabs a metal rod and attacks the husband without warning, killing him instantly. The terrified wife runs for her life, but panic leads her straight into the path of an oncoming truck. The driver loses control while trying to avoid her, and the truck crashes in a fiery explosion. The killer watches the destruction in silence. Then he uses the victim's blood to paint a dark symbol on the car, suggesting his crimes may be tied to something ritualistic. News of the massacre spreads quickly. Jane meets with the FBI and offers her help, explaining that the killer also murdered her husband. However, the lead agent refuses to involve her. One detective named Rebecca secretly disagrees. She believes Jane's knowledge could be valuable, but she cannot openly challenge her superior. Later, Rebecca meets Jane privately and shares confidential evidence. She explains that the killer does not stay in one place. He moves from hotel to hotel, leaving behind clues and disturbing symbols. It becomes clear these murders are not random acts of madness. Everything follows a pattern, meaning the killer has a larger objective. Rebecca takes Jane to one of the hotel rooms the murderer previously used. Inside, strange markings cover the walls. Investigating deeper, Jane finally discovers the suspect's name, Richard. The two women begin analyzing his movements, trying to predict where he will strike next. During their investigation, new breaking news arrives. An explosion has happened at a shopping center, and the device used matches weapons linked to the killer. The film then returns to Richard preparing another attack. He sharpens a metal pipe into a deadly weapon and heads to a church. Pretending to seek confession, he isolates a priest in a private room. Once alone, he suddenly stabs the priest in the throat and murders him in brutal fashion. By now, Jane has traced him to another hotel. Armed and cautious, she enters his room. She searches carefully and finds signs he was there recently. While checking the bathroom, she discovers a hidden firearm. But before she can react, Richard appears behind her. A violent struggle erupts across the room. Jane fights hard, but Richard overpowers her and escapes once again in his car, throws her through a window. Though injured, Jane searches the room and recovers crucial evidence he failed to destroy. The clues lead to another strange chapter in the investigation, who claims to belong to a secret satanic group. Richard makes contact with a man named Calvin. Calvin invites him to their hidden compound, promising they share the same beliefs and can help him complete his mission. Richard visits the location and meets several cult members engaged in bizarre behavior and heavy drug use. He quickly realizes these people are frauds pretending to serve something dark. Calvin, however, seems different from the others, Richard quietly asks. Calvin for help locating a specific man whose identity he has been searching for. Calvin agrees. Later, Richard sees Jane giving an interview about the case. Rather than hiding, he seems pleased by her attention. He even calls the police station directly and tells Jane he knows she is chasing him. He promises to keep leaving clues so she can follow his path. Jane is shocked that he would contact her so confidently, but she also understands he wants her involved in his twisted game. Back at the cult mansion, the leader forces members to take drugs and participate in disturbing rituals. Richard watches in disgust. Once Calvin provides the information he wanted, Richard warns him to leave the cult behind if he values his life. Then he walks away. Soon after, Richard returns carrying an axe and gasoline. He enters the mansion and slaughters everyone inside. In a brutal rampage, he kills the cult leader and sets the entire place on fire. But before leaving, he senses someone nearby. He places his mask near a window as bait. A sniper bullet instantly destroys it. Jane has found him again. Jane jumps into her car and chases Richard down the road, but he outsmarts her and crashes her vehicle into a ditch, escaping yet again. When the FBI finally arrives, it is too late. Jane is furious because they ignored her warnings and wasted valuable time. Now Richard moves toward the final stage of his plan. Using the information Calvin gave him, he targets a man named Bill. Breaking into Bill's home, Richard waits in the basement and begins assembling explosives. When Bill and his wife return that evening, they are captured. Richard threatens to kill the wife unless Bill obeys every command. At the same time, Jane follows another clue left behind by the killer. She notices the letters 3MI written near a building. After thinking carefully, she realizes it refers to 3 Mile Island, a nuclear facility. Suddenly, the entire pattern becomes clear. Richard is not just a serial killer, he plans to trigger a nuclear disaster that could wipe out the city and spread devastation far beyond it. Richard forces Bill, who manages the power plant, to take him inside. He sneaks through security, kills guards with grenades and gunfire, and reaches the control room. There, he orders the workers out and forces Bill to activate the plant systems under threat of his wife's death. Once the task is done, Richard kills Bill as well. Outside, Jane races to the facility and warns security that a catastrophe is unfolding. Alarms begin sounding across the plant. Guards rush inside with her and discover bodies everywhere. The surviving workers stand outside in terror while Richard remains inside the control room. He straps bombs across his body and prepares for a suicide detonation that would destroy the plant. Negotiation seems impossible. Jane knows he has no interest in surviving. With no time left, she climbs to an upper position and fires through reinforced glass using a sniper rifle. She first wounds him, trying to stop his movement. But Richard still attempts to trigger the explosives. Jane reacts instantly and shoots again, disabling his hand. Finally, she fires a fatal shot to his head. Richard collapses, but the danger is not over. A live grenade still burns inside the room, threatening to ignite everything. Security teams break in just in time and deactivate the explosive, saving the entire city from destruction. In the post-credit scene, a shocking reveal changes everything. On the day Jane believed Richard had died, he may have still been alive and transferred into custody instead. Even after everything, the possibility remains that such evil could return someday. The story ends on an unsettling note, leaving Jane with fear that the nightmare may never truly be over.